My name is Sarah Thompson, and I am 42 years old. 3 months ago, I used an old baby monitor to hear the truth my husband was too cowardly to say to my face. I had slammed the front door, pretended to leave, circled the block, and slipped back into my own house, through the garage door I had left unlocked. I sat in the dark guest room with that monitor in my hand, breathing so quietly I could hear my own heartbeat. Then Mark's voice came through the speaker. "Rachel, she's gone. Finally. I can't keep pretending anymore." 7 words. That was all it took to crack 18 years of marriage wide open. Before we get into this, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you, and drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you are right now. Before I tell you what happened that night, I need to take you back to the beginning. Mark and I had what people called a solid marriage. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Chicago, in a 2-story house with white trim, a maple tree in the front yard, and neighbors who waved while pretending not to notice anything. We had a 16-year-old daughter, Emma, who was smart, anxious, funny, and at that age where every conversation sounded like a negotiation. For years, I measured love in routines. Pancakes on Saturday mornings, pressed shirts hanging in Mark's closet, Emma's lunch packed with apple slices and little notes she pretended to hate, mortgage payments made on time, dentist appointments scheduled, birthdays remembered, holidays hosted. That was my life. Not glamorous, not loud, but steady. And for a long time, steady felt like happiness. Mark worked in corporate sales. He was charming in that effortless way some men are, the kind of man people trusted before he earned it. At 45, he still had that easy smile that made waitresses linger and clients laugh a little too hard. I loved that smile once, but by last October I realized I hadn't seen it directed at me in months. He smiled at his phone. He smiled on late calls in the garage. He smiled when old college names came up. Especially Rachel. Rachel was his college girlfriend. The one who had existed in our marriage like a ghost nobody admitted was still in the room. I knew her name from stories. I knew she had been ambitious, beautiful, funny. I knew they had broken up, because life pulled them in different directions. That was the version I had always accepted. Then his college reunion came around. The week before the event, Mark changed. He started humming in the shower. He bought a new shirt without telling me. He asked if his gray jacket made him look older. He checked his phone like it was giving him oxygen. When I asked about the reunion, he said, "Rachel's helping organize it. She's divorced now." "Tough year for her." He said it casually, but his voice softened on her name. That softness stayed with me. The night of the reunion, I wore a deep green dress I hadn't worn in years. I stood in front of the mirror and told myself I still looked like a woman who could be desired, not just depended on. The ballroom was full of string lights, perfume, catered chicken, and middle-aged people trying to look like time had been kind. Mark looked happier than he had in months. Then Rachel walked in. She was graceful, confident, with dark hair and a tailored blazer. When she saw Mark, her face lit up. "Mark Thompson," she said, "you haven't aged a day." They hugged. Not a normal hug, a memory hug. The kind where 2 people hold on half a second too long because their bodies remember something their mouths haven't confessed yet. I stood beside them with a polite smile and a glass of white wine turning warm in my hand. Rachel looked at me and said, "Sarah, it's so nice to finally meet you properly. Mark has mentioned you over the years. You two always seemed so solid." Solid. That word felt like a compliment and an obituary at the same time. For the rest of the evening, I watched them drift toward each other. Their heads bent close. Their laughter came easily. Mark looked younger beside her, lighter, like the husband I had been trying to reach was still alive, just not with me. On the drive home, he tapped the steering wheel and said, "It was good seeing everyone. Rachel's doing consulting now. She's really rebuilt after the divorce." I looked out the window at the passing porch lights. "She seems strong," I said. He nodded. "She always was." That was when I felt the first real crack. Not suspicion. Not yet. Grief. Because sometimes your body understands betrayal before your brain is ready to admit it. After that, everything became a pattern. Mark's work dinners got later. His phone buzzed during dinner. He started taking calls outside, even when it was cold. He used words like client, pressure, and deadline until they sounded less like explanations and more like rehearsed lines. One afternoon, I saw a message flash across his phone on the kitchen counter. "Can't stop thinking about our talk last night. When can I see you again?" There was no name on the preview. There didn't need to be. My hands went cold. I set the phone down exactly where it had been, as if touching it too long would make the truth permanent. That night, I cooked his favorite roast chicken. I set the table. I smiled through dinner while Emma talked about school, and Mark nodded at all the right places. Afterward, while folding laundry in the guest room, I smelled perfume on his shirt. Light. Floral. Not mine. I pressed the fabric between my fingers and stood there for a long time. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever felt the person you love becoming a stranger in your own home, drop a "me too" in the comments. Because that quiet kind of heartbreak is hard to explain unless you've lived it. I did try to talk to him. One night, after Emma went upstairs, I poured 2 glasses of red wine and said, "Mark, are we okay?" He barely looked at me. "We're fine, Sarah. Life is just busy." "Busy doesn't explain why you feel miles away from me." He sighed, like I had asked him to move a mountain. "You're overthinking." Emma's applications, my projects, everything is pressure right now. I wanted to believe him. But there is a difference between being reassured and being dismissed. I started documenting things without knowing why. Screenshots of strange messages when I could see them. Notes in my phone about late nights. Dates, times, the perfume, the calls. The way he would come home smiling at memories I had never been part of. I wasn't trying to build a case. I was trying to stay sane. Because when someone lies calmly enough, you start questioning your own eyes. My best friend Lisa was the only person I told. We met at our usual cafe, where the coffee smelled like vanilla and burnt sugar. I told her about Rachel, the messages, the phone calls, the perfume. Lisa listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Sarah, you don't need proof to deserve respect. But if you want the truth, stop asking him to confess." People confess when they're sorry. People lie when they're still protecting the thing they want. That sentence stayed with me. 2 nights later, Mark said he had another late work commitment. "Big presentation tomorrow," he said, kissing my forehead. "Don't wait up." But he came home earlier than expected that Friday. Emma was at a sleepover. The house was quiet. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with wet leaves and cold pavement. I made grilled chicken and roasted vegetables. We ate mostly in silence. Then I set down my fork. "I feel invisible in this marriage," I said. "Not tired, not stressed. Invisible." Mark leaned back and rubbed his face. "Sarah, not tonight." That did it. "Then when?" I asked. "When exactly do we talk about the fact that you're here physically but gone everywhere else?" His face hardened. I said not tonight. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the tile. "I need air, Mark. Don't follow me." I grabbed my coat, slammed the front door, got into my car, and drove around the block. But I did not leave. I parked in the dark corner of our cul-de-sac, killed the engine, and waited 2 minutes. Then I slipped through the garage door I had left unlocked. Earlier that day, I had placed the old baby monitor transmitter in the living room under the excuse of testing it for Emma's anxious nights. We had used it when she was little, when she woke up scared and needed to know we could hear her. That night, it heard something else. I crept upstairs to the guest room, shut the door almost all the way, and turned on the receiver. Static. Then footsteps. Then Mark's voice. "Hey, it's me." A pause. She stormed out. Finally gave me some breathing room. My chest tightened. Then he said her name. "Rachel, I can't keep doing this dance anymore." The room tilted. He kept talking. "Sarah's been checked out for years. Always the mom, always the schedule keeper. I don't even feel like a husband anymore. I feel like a paycheck." I covered my mouth with my hand. I had been the one holding everything together, and somehow he had turned my loyalty into his loneliness. Then he said, "Last night with you reminded me what it feels like to be wanted." Last night. Not emotional affair, not harmless nostalgia. Last night. Rachel's voice came faintly through the speaker. "I've waited for this, Mark. I don't want to hide anymore." He said, "Emma's old enough. She'll understand eventually." That was the moment something inside me changed. Not broke, changed. Because hearing him betray me was devastating. Hearing him casually decide our daughter would understand eventually was unforgivable. I sat in the dark for several minutes after the call ended. The monitor hissed with static. Downstairs, I heard the refrigerator open. A bottle clinked. The television turned on. Ordinary sounds. In an ordinary house, after an ordinary marriage had just ended, I wiped my face, stood up, and walked downstairs. Mark was on the couch with a beer in his hand. He jumped when he saw me. "Sarah, I thought you left." I heard everything. The color drained from his face. "What are you talking about?" "The baby monitor," I said. "Your call with Rachel. All of it." He stood slowly. "It's not what it sounded like." I almost laughed. "Mark, it sounded exactly like what it was." He put the beer down. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. That's not an apology. That's a complaint about consequences." He ran a hand through his hair. "She understood me. You've been so focused on Emma, and the house and everything else. I felt invisible too." I stared at him. "Do you know why I was focused on Emma? Because she is our child. Do you know why I focused on the house? Because we live here. Do you know why I focused on schedules and meals and bills? Because someone had to." His eyes turned red. "I love you, Sarah." "No," I said quietly. "You loved being taken care of. You loved knowing I would stay." "That is not the same thing." He reached for me. I stepped back. That small movement said more than yelling ever could. He left for a hotel that night. The door closed softly behind him, which somehow hurt more than if he had slammed it. I stood in the living room surrounded by family photos, Disney trips, Emma's birthdays, our anniversary dinner, frozen smiles from a life that had looked solid from the outside. The next morning, I called Lisa. Then I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, because boundaries are not revenge. They are protection. Telling Emma was the hardest thing I have ever done. She sat at the kitchen table in an oversized hoodie, her face pale. "Dad made choices that hurt our family," I told her. "We are figuring out what happens next. But none of this is your fault." Tears filled her eyes. "I knew something was wrong," she whispered. "Please don't make me choose." I hugged her so tightly I could feel her shaking. "You never have to choose," I said. "Adults made this mess. Adults will carry it." For the next few weeks, Mark tried everything. Texts, flowers, long voicemails. I made a mistake. I was confused. She meant nothing. "We can fix this." But every message sounded like he was grieving the loss of comfort, not the damage he caused. Rachel disappeared once reality arrived. That part almost made me laugh. The fantasy had been easy when I was just an obstacle in Mark's story. It became much less romantic when lawyers, custody schedules, and mortgage papers entered the room. 6 weeks later, Mark asked to meet. We sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. He looked older, tired, smaller somehow. "I ended it," he said. I nodded. He waited for relief to appear on my face. It didn't. "I want to come home." I stirred my coffee. "Do you know what you said about me that night?" He looked down. I was angry. "No. You were honest. Maybe not about me, but about how you saw me." He swallowed. "I don't know how to fix it. That's the first true thing you've said in months." Then I placed a folder on the table. Inside were printed screenshots, call notes, dates, the message previews. A written summary from the night of the baby monitor. Not to punish him, to make sure he could not rewrite history. "Every time you try to make this smaller," I said, "I want you to remember that I documented what happened. Not because I hate you, because I refuse to be gaslit inside my own pain." He stared at the folder. For once, he had nothing to say. The divorce was not dramatic. It was paperwork, signatures, bank statements, custody discussions, and quiet grief in grocery store aisles when I reached for Mark's favorite cereal out of habit. Healing was not dramatic either. It was coffee alone on the back porch. It was Emma and me making stir-fry while music played too loudly. It was changing the bedroom curtains. It was sleeping through the night for the first time without wondering who he was texting. It was remembering that I had a name before I was his wife, Sarah, not schedule keeper, not emotional furniture, not the woman waiting at home while he chased a version of himself that never existed. Months later, Emma and I moved into a smaller house with better light. I started taking more substitute teaching hours, and later accepted a full-time position at the high school. I made my own money, paid my own bills, bought my own flowers. Lisa came over on Sundays. Emma painted her room blue. I planted lavender by the front steps. The house smelled different. Not like loss, like beginning. Mark still texts sometimes, usually about Emma, sometimes with a sentence that tries to open an old door. I miss us. I don't answer those messages, because us was not what he missed. He missed being trusted by a woman who no longer exists. If you are listening to this, and you have ever been betrayed by someone who expected your loyalty to survive their disrespect, I want you to hear me clearly. You are allowed to stop explaining. You are allowed to stop begging for honesty. You are allowed to protect your peace without proving your pain to anyone. The truth is not revenge. It is just a mirror. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is hold it up, let them see themselves, and walk away. People ask me if I regret using the baby monitor. I don't. That little green light showed me the truth I had been feeling for months. It did not destroy my marriage. Mark's choices did that. The monitor only made the silence speak. And now, when the house is quiet, I am no longer afraid of what I might hear. I hear Emma laughing upstairs. I hear coffee brewing in the morning. I hear wind moving through the lavender outside my window. And most importantly, I hear myself. Clear, calm, free. If this story resonated with you, comment your story or just let me know you are here. Because honestly, knowing we are not alone in this means more than most people understand. And if there is one thing I learned, it is this. I did not get revenge. I became someone who did not need it. And that is something no one can ever take away.